then you know what your cost has a basis for. Right now, there is no basis for any costs other than a conceptual idea based on others, because we had a need to have a placeholding number or something like that, okay? But, and that's fine, but it's important that the information is that there is a process by which we do arrive at a conceptual estimate. So when it comes to the what, and I think we will, need input from the architect as how to do that, and with the meetings. But one possible, I think, good way, and it's just my opinion, is to hold it in a workshop type of a session. And what I mean by it isn't, there are thousands of people in Trumbull, and maybe only 10% will come to workshops, or a series of 4 workshops, and maybe fewer than that, probably. Where you instead of listening to people, they sit at tables, and you give them maybe a series of questions, something they brainstorm a little bit about what they think the town needs, or what do they think they would like to see. And you have a little document, and then you funnel it, and each table has a spokesperson who maybe they can come and talk. Now, I'm not saying, I haven't conducted these except for on planning and zoning. We did this for different, the plan of conservation development and the Lower Main Street study. This is exactly how we did it, because then everybody felt like they had a chance to speak without having to walk up to a microphone. Okay? Who wants to come? And if they miss one, they can go to another. That's correct. And it'll take some time. But I think, and certainly again, I think the architect who's experienced in gathering information and listening would certainly have ideas about this. But I agree with the ideas of how do we get either a consensus or an idea, so that we know that everybody, all constituencies have something to say, because we don't know every group that needs a meeting place necessarily. But if you have these, somebody can say, well, I lead a Cub Scout pack, it'd be really nice if there was space or time, just as an example, devoted that where Cub Scouts can meet, or Boy Scouts can, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's the need, or whatever other club might be out there. But all I'm saying is is a method that lends voice to people, I think is a great idea. Before we get out in front of ourselves, before we talk about costs and everything else. So all I'm doing is framing a possible pre-design phase. That's all we're asking him to do. When the pre-design phase is done, then we know this is what the town might want. And you don't even have to decide, do we do a pool or not? These are the things we want to do. This is where it might go, and this is what it might cost. And then we say, okay, we going the next step or not? And then you develop an agreement or a contract to do the project. We are not hiring him yet to design a building. And anything about the architect telling us what we're going to do is simply not true. He's listening, and he's going out to different groups in order to listen and hear. And I don't think it needs to necessarily, or we need to feel that it's based on any other facility he's done, because we want Trumbull. It may be just like a facility he's done. But we want Trumbull to feel that this is the facility that we need, that we can afford to do, in the location that we, if we do it, is the best one for it. Because I don't know if there's any good location, really, that doesn't have some drawbacks or something like that. Am I making any sense? I'm just trying to frame what we're looking for as a goal that packages a first phase that has a beginning and an end, and that's all we're at. Okay, but when we're done, we've got something, we've got a concept, for a building. And it may be the 20,000 square feet, but I know that was a lot with the so we're gonna open that up again and get our professional. So everybody should understand, we didn't hire an architect to design a building, we hired an architect to help us get through this feasibility pre-design, to answer all the questions that have been out there, you know, about, you know, what are we doing, where is it going, how can you design a building if you don't have a site? Well, how can you pick a site if you don't have a building, so forth. So there are a number of options, and it's his job, professional expertise and job, to synthesize that information and try to crystallize it, with whatever visual or graphic or written information to qualify and quantify what we are looking at, without anybody thinking we're rushing off yet to build a building. And then everybody is on board. So, okay, I'll shut up.
Well said, thank you, well said, David, thank you.
Lori didn't elbow you, so it was okay.
No,
No,
I,
yeah.
did you see I was nodding like one of those little?
No, but I agree with Lori,
bobblehead.
yes, we, about the that's the hard part, yeah,
Right.
finding a way to, as they said, listening to all the groups and all the stakeholders, because, you know, we're not going with preconceived notions, we're trying to do, what does a community center in the town of Trumbull look like? If it's a community, or a community facility in the town of Trumbull look like? It's one that fills the needs that we have in society. And I definitely think we should keep a pool, my own personal, we may reject, we may not do it, but we gotta, if we don't do it, we gotta tell people why, okay? And for every other thing that goes into anything, so.
I think it's important what you talked about with the site, because I feel like we were kind of getting into that mode of talking about sites every other meeting, it kind of changed, and I, you know, at least from what I'm understanding from you, is we really need to know what we're looking at, and hopefully the where comes into place, and I understand that's a big part of it, but I think we were getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Well, right, we don't wanna get too far, because certainly the what we're going to do helps helps us to analyze a potential site. Okay, it's not just location, centrally located, whatever, wetlands, this, that, and the other thing, rock. But the what is really important, because he could say, you know, this is a building that may be a long rectangle, it may be an L-shaped, it may be a T-shaped, it may be a circle, it may be one other thing, but thinking about how, especially one that conforms to different uses or groups, certainly is important in determining what site might work, because we may have a site that we think is great, but it may not quite work. All it does is, the more information, the better analysis we can do for doing
Very
it.
good points.
Very
Anyone
good.
else?
I think that was an excellent summary. I agree with everything you said.
Next meeting will be, or is scheduled for?
When?
the agenda?
We didn't have one scheduled, we don't have any scheduled.
We should meet after we speak with,
Yeah.
so whenever we speak with the
Points for the architect.
I hope that we can finalize what we need to by the end of next week, so, maybe we can meet the following week, the 10th or the 11th of August?
I don't think you have to push it beyond that, because we don't know what the schedule is.
The following week then?
The week of the 15th, what it says.
Oh, what date is? Tuesday the 16th, Wednesday the 17th, Thursday?
The third usually on Thursday, the 18th. You know,
Thursday?
the 18th, want to put that in
Thursday the
tentatively?
18th? Yeah.
If not, we can change it if it's not ready.
At 7?
What day was that?
Wednesday the 18th.
Thursday,
I mean, Thursday the 18th, tentatively.
and that's Will be based on if the scope is
Based
set
on
in
what
place and we
developed.
have,
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make motion.
second it? All in favor? What does the air conditioning
I keep
do now?
thinking